A big part of one's performance is how much pain you can take.
So tell me about when this started to change. Was it something that happened gradually, or was it more of a decisive moment for you?
When you're in this environment where certain things are like glorified, you really tune down all the doubts. But there were certain interactions like with my bosses, and then when I became a manager as well, I started to realize, do I really want to be this kind of person? Is this how I want to show up in the world?
Of a personal finance standpoint, what are some preparations do you think people can make?
Well, knowing your
So back to what I was saying. Could be us.
In Singapore, we often talk about money in terms of returns. How to earn more, save more, invest smarter. But true wealth isn't always about the numbers. Sometimes it's about alignment between what we value and how we live. Today's guest, Gail Wong, once advised billion-dollar deals across 3 continents. Now, she helps professionals and investors align their money with their values and build lives and portfolios that reflect what truly matters. In this conversation, we'll talk about how Gail has redefined success and how we can all make choices that bring our finances and values back into alignment. So welcome, Gail. Thank you so much for joining us on today's podcast.
Thanks, Julian, for having me.
So before we begin, thinking maybe you could just do a quick introduction of yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'll start the usual way, which is what I do, but sprinkle in a bit of me. I'm the CEO and primary coach at Live True, which is my coaching and consulting practice. I've coached for 15 years, and I primarily work with purpose-driven professionals or business owners to elevate their net worth and their self-worth in soul-aligned ways.
At 27, you were advising billion-dollar deals across 3 continents. Many people in your life, I suppose, saw you as kind of a model of success, right? Back then, what did success mean to you? And what did you think that version of success would bring into your life?
I never really thought about that until I was in my 30s. But I think the unconscious kind of success that I had spent my entire life up to that point going forward can be boiled down to doing everything that comes to me with excellence, especially the hard things. And as a Singaporean kid, you know, you've got your PSLE, you've got your academic pathway. That's your main job as a kid. And we always have like things given to us to do, right? Bars that we're meant to jump over. And I remember in my late 20s when at the end of the year, I had taken stock of like, okay, this year has been like that. We've done this. What am I going to do next year that's new? So it was always about like doing the next hard thing and excelling at it as much as you can.
And would you say that many of these hard things were in a way predetermined?
Yes. But I think there's a wisdom that comes with saying, can I do it? Moving from can I do it to should I do it? Right? And I think when I started to contemplate what success meant and looked like, the second question became more of the focus.
Right.
Because we can take on an array of things. As an adult, I had like this consuming career on Wall Street. And so you really don't have many hours outside of the day to do much. But I was looking around and I realized, oh, I have peers who maybe don't work as intensely and they get to volunteer.
Right.
Or I have peers like consulting who are collecting passport stamps, right? Is that a measure of success? So I started to realize, actually, life can throw you lots of opportunities, and sometimes you can go and create other opportunities to choose to do, but we're not infinite. And so success to me is two-pronged. One is defining what matters, and then it's moved from doing it really well or better than everyone else to serving with your gifts, right? Some things we're not meant to do ourselves.
Right.
sometimes we make the biggest difference focusing on a piece of it. Yeah.
But when you were navigating what you described as an all-consuming career, I'm curious, what kept you going through that?
Well, I'll tell you, when I got my first bonus check after my first year in banking,
Yep.
that was probably like the high and the reference point.
Right.
Right? Like, wow, I'm valued.
Mm-hmm.
And your first working year, you're like totally clueless. You don't know if you would be valued. And this was like post 9/11. So people were losing their jobs. So I'm just happy to have a job. And I'm happy
Right.
that I have a great review.
Yep.
And, you know, it's a 6-figure paycheck. My goodness, how amazing and lucky I am. Then the next few years was sort of trying to look for that same high and satisfaction. Yeah, the number will grow, but somehow the internal experience didn't quite match. And at some point, what kept me going was like lots of people fight to be where I am. Right. And there was some conversations like, hey, this is a first world problem.
Right.
Or don't think so much, you know. Why can't you be happy with what you have? So there was some second guessing and sort of swirling around.
Yeah.
But I think the external expectations or the external values that I got from my environment was what kept me there perhaps longer than where my heart or my intuition was whispering.
Right. So tell me about when this started to change. Was it something that happened gradually, or was it more of a decisive moment for you?
You know, I'd say that when you're in this environment where certain things are like glorified, you really tune down all the doubts and the whispers, as I said, right? So I think that sense was growing gradually. It's probably more gradual than a one-time thing. But there were certain interactions, like with my bosses, and then when I became a manager as well, I started to realize, do I really want to be this kind of person? Is this how I want to show up in the world? And if you're working like 90 hours hour weeks, that's like 70% of your conscious time.
Yes.
So there were moments like that where to be frank, like I had some traumatizing exchanges, and I probably have caused some, triggered some upsets too because of the ways that was acceptable to work in banking.
Right. And when you're talking about traumatizing exchanges or experiences, are you comfortable saying a little bit more about what these were for you?
Sure.
In the context of this career.
Well, vulgarities are used.
Right.
It's like an everyday thing. We were talking about this conference call where like our VP was really agitated. It was this competitive deal. There was multiple banks on this IPO, and he misunderstood what we said, and he started to like fly off the handle.
Right.
And all the expletives are coming out from this speakerphone. And then the guy goes like, Nash, please shut up. Like, so this is every day. I get voice messages with like tons of this in it, and yeah, it was generally like you're asked to. A big part of one's performance is how much pain you can take, right? And part of that is like the yelling over a footnote.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And listening to you share this story, I can't help but also think about how sometimes when these things happen often enough, they become normalized almost.
Absolutely.
Right? We accept that this is just what the job is, and we think that this becomes expected, right? And it should be happening. Yeah.
But to actually process and to say, that's not okay. People don't talk to each other this way.
Yep.
And should I have like said something? Like, hey, let's speak later, right? And just ended it, or just sat there and let him do his thing. So we don't talk about it at all when these things happen.
Yeah, yeah. So how old were you when you decided to leave Wall Street?
I was 27.
I'm wondering whether this decision, did it take any concrete form? And what I mean by this is that in your previous life, you worked a lot with spreadsheets, right? Did you ever do any kind of, cost-benefit analysis? Like, what am I actually losing out on if I were to make this decision?
I think the things you can count are very easy to dump into a spreadsheet. So we know the earnings trajectory in banking. And I even had like a peer come up to me 6 months later and said, "Wow, you left right before you hit the big time, huh?"
Right.
So we know what we might be giving up. I didn't really need a spreadsheet for that. And I didn't do a spreadsheet for the other things too. But at that point, I was like getting my thyroid checked and just really like having a hard time getting out of bed.
Right.
And I'm looking at like 10 more years of that before I get to MD, right? And it's like, really? Like, this is what everybody wants? Like, yeah.
But you couldn't see yourself doing it for another 10 years.
I could see myself doing it, but I'd probably be miserable and grumpy. And if I'm lucky, and if you're unlucky, like cancer or I've had friends die from cancer.
Right.
From my banking years.
When you made this transition out of banking, right, stepping into this new phase of your life, I'm curious, what were some of the things that surfaced for you? And I guess I'm thinking about, was it challenging in terms of navigating this new identity? What else came up for you?
So I just want to acknowledge that I was in a position of privilege to do that, right? And because I lived at home or I'd squirreled away, I made a point to squirrel away all the money that I had made. Like, I didn't really have to worry too much about how much runway I had.
Yeah.
The shift was walking into a room, and as a banker, you're kind of trained to like size people's net worth up from far.
Okay.
And when you're in those circles, that's kind of the unspoken, like so and so has been at this PE firm for how long? So you're like, okay, how much carry might he have?
Right.
What's his? Yeah. It's sort of a automatic response.
Okay.
And so going to like college reunions. I mean, I went to Wharton Business School, so most of the folks there are still in finance, right? So going to a meetup, and you can kind of see on someone's face and their body language, like, oh, you're not important anymore.
Right.
I'd rather talk to that person, right? So I think it was more identity than financial for sure. And questioning, well, without a job title, and the paycheck, like if I went back to work, I knew I could make what I used to make, right? Like that wasn't so much a loss, but just how do you hold yourself? And then the day-to-day was surprisingly challenging. You're used to showing up and people tell you what to do.
Yeah.
And then you just get to work.
Right.
And I think the autonomy is nice. The idea of autonomy is nice, but I really kind of didn't quite know what was optimal for my natural rhythm. I had to discover that after many years.
Right.
It's not as easy to say you can do whatever you want. You can sleep at any time, wake up at any time, and that's like blissful life. But actually, a lot of us thrive on some level of structure.
Yeah, and many people talk about this idea of having kind of a recovery period when you leave a full-time job. It's almost as though you need to relearn how to have free time and relearn how to have that agency and control over what you fill your days with. So for you, could you walk us through what building that new life looked like, right? Did you immediately have that idea to start your business, or was that something that came later?
Yeah. Well, when I left, I knew I just wanted to play and check off some bucket list things.
Sure.
For some period of time. But I was really restless. as someone who is used to doing what people give me as a task and going after it,
Yeah.
I'm like quite antsy.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, I didn't realize I was antsy. So this went on for years, right? I'm like, oh, here's an interesting volunteer thing. Let me go do it. And then let me do that one. And just being busy.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't really do very much of that. I was just sort of, for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
I stumbled upon a personal development program within 6 months of leaving banking. And I was a bit intrigued. I was like, what is this? And at that point, my whole world is, if I can see it, it's real.
Right.
If there's a science for it, that it's real. But anything else, like, I was very skeptical.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, like, I decided to try this 3-day program called the Landmark Forum. And that was my introduction to the world of the unseen and the psychology of why we do the things we do.
Mm-hmm.
It was quite moving and profound, and so I went on to be a leader within the curriculum eventually and coach. That's where I started to coach people, and the light bulb came on for me.
Mm-hmm. For you personally, what were some of those unseen things that you started to see?
Well, I realized how much of my life was based in fear of looking stupid, fear of disappointing my ancestors.
Right.
Like, I don't know if it seems like an Asian thing where your ancestors struggled and they gave you all these things, and it's your duty to make the most of it.
Yeah.
And walking away from this coveted job that was a dream for many was something that I was reckoning with at that time.
So for anyone who might be listening to this who's considering pursuing a similar career transition or maybe even sort of a downshifting, right? Some people might be thinking, especially in this economy, right, is can I really afford to make a decision like this? Generally, what kind of advice or what kind of perspective do you try to share with people when they're grappling with those sometimes very real financial trade-offs?
Yeah, so I acknowledge my privilege because sometimes we have family members to support.
Right.
There are special needs. And yeah, especially with AI, like, is there even a job for me like a year later? I think that's why the practical part is equally important. Can I afford to take this time, and how long? And how do I make it count? But I think there's also the right time to do something like that.
Okay, say more.
Sometimes we get a catalyst. Because for a number of years, I was already like asking, do I want to stay here? But it's very hard to leave if you have no push factor, right?
Yeah.
Until like the office closes down or you're asked to relocate, and there are these decision points involved.
Right. You don't want to be in a situation where maybe something happens at work and then you rage quit and you don't have a plan. That can be quite a tough spot to be in as well.
Right.
Yeah. I guess from a more of a personal finance standpoint, what are some preparations do you think people can make?
Well, knowing your numbers, knowing the numbers of your life. What are the non-negotiable pieces that you want to keep and retain and that are important for your well-being? And what is, for admiration? Like, keeping up with the peers. Like, it is probably quite real that like you can't party with your banker friends the same way.
For sure.
Yeah. And I know for some, it's a loss of face maybe, or you find you get left out, but then the anchoring of like what really matters.
On that note, I wanted to talk a bit about what it means to align all those things in your life, right? I think you're someone who talk about aligning both your financial life and your values. And I'm wondering, practically, what does that look like for you?
About 8 years ago, I was thinking a lot, I still am, about capital in this world. What capital can fund and forward, right? And I have one foot in the startup world, so I see the power of capital, and I also saw that it was going down. It was funding things that I found myself not really caring that much about.
Okay.
And it was funding ways of being, ways of running businesses that were extractive,
Okay.
or sometimes unethical. So extractive to humans, but also extractive to the planet, right? Like, there's much written about degrowth and growth at all costs being untenable for this planet. And yeah, part of this success definition, is it that we have to keep growing? Do we have to keep collecting more and more accolades or dollars in the bank? Like, what's all that for? I've been part of regenerative investing groups and businesses that really try and take the whole person into account. And so I do give part of my money, not a big part at all, but I do make sure I'm giving, not just to charities, but to some of these vehicles or businesses that are maybe not the most financially lucrative, but they take care of their people, or their work itself is regenerating human spirit or the planet. I think to me, it's sort of non-negotiable. I need to be part of that. And a choice to, for example, not invest in like traditional energy companies.
Would it be fair to say that this is really about making sure that the actions that you take and the decisions that you make, they reflect the values that you claim to stand for?
Yeah, it's a big statement.
Yeah.
And there are probably many, many ways, if we really thought about it,
Right.
of how I'm not doing it yet, right? But where you can see and where it is relatively accessible to make the switch. Yes.
Yeah.
So my portfolio, I've had this argument with my husband for a while, and I'm like, we've got to have at least half of it in sustainable mandates. Yeah.
And I suppose there is a cost to that, right? Because some of these portfolios also mean lower returns.
There's a spectrum.
Okay.
Yeah. There is a point where impact investing can actually be doubly extractive because you're asking people to do good and do well. That's the commercial impact investing. Sometimes I've seen examples of that. And then the other extreme of like giving with no expectation of return, but returns in other non-countable forms. There are times I can point to a tangible loss. So in 2022, all the asset classes, aside from energy stocks and cash, were negative, and quite negative, high single digits or even double digits. And as a non-oil and gas stockholder, it did drag my performance more than everyone else. And normally when I lose money, or I'm so attuned to this that I can feel pain, right? When I lose money, I can calculate. I'm very aware of this, but in this case, and it was not a small sum. I'm like, okay, it's a few more percentage points, but I was quite rooted in my long-term view. We don't want to be invested. This is not where we want to be. It's like weapons or child labor. Like, it's very clear. I don't want any part of that, even if I'm going to be making more money. So that's, I guess, a principle which many people will argue, like, can we afford that? I'm at the point where I can afford that. They say invest in things that let you sleep at night. I think this is part of it too.
Right. Would you say that's sort of how you navigate the emotional dimension of decisions like this? Because I imagine principles can be somewhat intellectual, right? We understand what they mean, but experiencing the decision, feeling that loss, seeing that number, all of these things land very differently. If someone listening to this is thinking, I want to make decisions like this too, but when I'm faced with that choice, I just can't, right? how do they go about starting to align some of these financial decisions with their own values?
I think there's a third factor that we don't always name or see, and that is what others will think of this.
Right.
That's usually what trips us up, right? The gap between principles and
Yeah.
execution.
What will people think if I do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll say, hey, you're so stupid, you leave money on the table. So I think a big part of how I figure things out is thanks to my training, and I am aware of this external, I call it shame. It's some form of shame.
Sure.
And I think if one has gone through life designing to minimize shame, you also know the cost, which is like, well, you're just trying to please everyone. Yeah, I think that's the tipping point, the ability to notice where shame is driving us and to be able to hold ourselves compassionately and say, well, and you can choose.
Yeah.
Like, if you can choose with open eyes. I guess.
Yeah. So what does wealth look like to you these days?
I've met some very rich people who don't behave as if, who don't feel rich inside. Right? And the opposite. Like, there are people who live very simply, but they're full of life and they're generous. And yeah, so I think wealth is as much as an experience as it might be a number. And they say there's a article or book that says beyond 50,000 or so,
Right.
human beings don't, the incremental utility is minimal.
Yeah.
Because then you just have lifestyle creep,
Yeah.
and it's just an expectations game after that. Yeah, I think wealth is also about legacy, or what you leave behind, or how you contribute to someone. It doesn't, legacy is so big and heavy, right?
Sure. And a little bit subjective,
Yeah.
depending on individuals.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I just mean, like, in present day terms, like, how do you leave places and people better than before you came along?
Yeah. I suppose we're also talking about impact.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
What are the consequences of the decisions that you're making? And for yourself in this season of your life, where it sounds like you have a lot of clarity around what these things mean to you, the kind of decisions that you're making, are there any tensions that continue to exist, whether it in your relationship with money, aligning your values with financial decisions and things like that? Are there things that you're still in the midst of trying to align?
Well, when you live in a capitalist world, you always are challenged. So I have a elder child who's in secondary 1. So we just went through the PSLE last year, which
Right.
is, I say we intentionally, right? Because the kid takes the exam, but it's not just a test. It's also a measurement of your worth and your identity. And so the tension, as someone who thinks about the future world and what's the best thing, how do I best prepare my child for it? There is a safe path of what I did, right? Go to as good a school as you can and get as good of a job as you can to constantly skill yourself upwards. And the kind of the grind. Because I really think it's wrong that a 12-year-old, internalizes that AL score is their worth.
Yeah.
And that they'll be left behind, and they're not important, or they'll be worthless if they don't go to X school. And I know you asked about money, but this is ultimately about livelihoods, which is a big contributor to money,
Yeah.
right? But what is a human being worth? Like, I guess that's a question I constantly grapple with, and is in the background with my clients too. Like, if I leave Microsoft, and I start a startup, or I leave Microsoft and do nothing with the rest of my nothing, do I stop to exist?
But I think like, you know, when you were talking about your eldest child who's in secondary one, right? A lot of what they are thinking about are probably not messages that you intentionally seeded in them. They're receiving all these things from the culture, from society, from external narratives. And we live with a lot of these external narratives even into adulthood, right? So the process of like unlearning and undoing that can be quite an arduous one.
It is a renaissance,
Mm.
I think, in like the culture of money
Mm.
to identify and then start to detangle oneself from that.
Mm.
Every Chinese New Year, I call it the auntie and uncle talk, right? Like, auntie and uncle say their daughter is doing so well. Auntie and uncle say, wow, you got promoted. Like, the auntie and uncle factor is so huge.
Mm.
And you're right. Like, that's why I work really hard as a parent to always say, that doesn't matter. You know, that doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
It's just a test we need to get through. But they're getting bombarded,
Yeah. Yeah.
usually like unconsciously.
Yeah. For you, you know, did becoming a parent change how you thought about wealth and success?
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a stay-home, so I was a full-time mom when my kids were a few years old, in their early years. I really wanted to discover and experience that because there were many people around me, and my mom went back to work like 1 month later.
Right.
Now, of course, it wasn't everything that the magazines say they are, but I got to really experience uncounted and unpaid work that you could, on one hand, say is the most important work.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty fundamental in terms of parenthood and being able to see that. Yeah. And I saw that everyone who succeeds at work, the high flying, the leaders and all, they're all supported by either mothers or wives or helpers. Someone is helping you succeed.
Someone is doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
It's not like you didn't do it all. Let's be honest. And so my, you know, as a woman, a fairly successful woman, you kind of have this pressure too to like, I've got to have it all. Right?
Yeah.
And it's nice to like set down that exhausting like, self-expectation, but nonetheless, yeah. You're supposed to look great and, you know, break barriers at work and then come home and like be a great mom, like and run the household and take care of your parents, like
and volunteer.
yeah, give back to society and
Yeah. So at this point, you know, are there certain lessons about, I guess, self or money or, you know, values that you're hoping your children will inherit?
The gift of honoring yourself is, like, if I could wish one thing for them or for all, really, is that. Because otherwise you're just a CV walking around. Of course, like, the second thing I'll say is always do your best at everything.
Of course.
But that's honoring your gifts, right? But without honoring yourself, and that's kind of the act of like listening to yourself and also being compassionate with yourself, then you're just a walking LinkedIn profile or a shelf of trophies, but where's the soul?
So we've talked quite a bit about a whole range of things, right? Money, success, self-worth, kids, and so on. I wanted to talk a little bit more also about your work with clients, right? Do you think some of these things are changing, or, you know, are the challenges still the same? You know, things that people are coming to you for, looking for your help with. Do you think that, you know, how we as a society are thinking about money and success, is this evolving, or is this pretty much still the same as when you started?
I think that there has been some movement and latitude. For example, in my time, an arts career was like the path to impoverishment, right? And now we're actually celebrating homegrown talents.
Yeah.
things like that. But I think the culture of money has been quite consistent. So until we can eradicate shame or have the tools to navigate shame around the culture of money and then change that as a result,
Yeah.
I think people still grapple with like, will I be worth something if I am the person that I am?
Yeah.
Right? If I follow my heart or if I live my truth, whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. I'm kind of hopeful because, not to get political, but I'm seeing in the way that our new government is trying to loosen some of the definitions of success or engage community. Maybe we have a shot at loosening that tight often wealth-oriented definition of success. Yeah, I have to be hopeful because I don't see how we continue doing what we used to do, and yeah, it's time for an evolution.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I think maybe just kind of a final question to round off this podcast. If you were to calculate the return on having made this transition, right, on leaving your banking job and all of that, how would you describe that return, whether it's in numbers or in things that are a little bit more qualitative?
Well, look, numbers, I can tell you, time adjusted, I'm definitely at like half or less of my earning potential, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have been MD by now. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not maybe. More like 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And I have friends who really do seem like they have it all. And they have more kids than me, too. I think that this is so MasterCard. I'm dating myself, too. But it's priceless, some of these experiences I've had, which I would never have those moments of peace in the morning when I open my eyes and I'm not on my phone, answering 10,000 emails. But I can lie there and I'm okay not doing anything right now. Or like the moment of like, I love myself, but not in that narcissistic way.
Yeah.
Like I have full self-acceptance of the things I am and the things I'm not, and to be free of the imposed striving.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think this conversation really gives people a sense of like what lies on the other side, especially when it comes to our career, where money is involved, where identity is involved. It feels like that's it, right? That's who you're meant to be. Even though there might be a lot of things that are telling us that we don't like it, it's not good for us. Making that decision can feel overwhelming. And we worry about what are other people going to think? Am I being ungrateful? And things like that. So really appreciate you taking the time to share your journey and also give people a very real sense of like what sometimes taking that courageous step can look like. So thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for letting me share it. Yeah, it's been a nice walk down memory lane.
Great to hear. Thank you.